Hello friends, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Tier 4 Part 2 of the Resident Evil Iceberg. And without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing we have is the Innawoods recreations. So Innawoods is a neat little site where, in their own words, it is a dress-up app for building bug-out gear / gear loadouts. And I tried it out and it was really fun. And I made a little berry from Revelations 2. And I just assume, people use this to recreate the Resident Evil characters. Like I did. Every RE1 enemy is a film reference. So the most obvious one for this is Night of the Living Dead for the zombies. Crows also appear in many horror flicks. The sharks are a Jaws reference. Hunters are probably inspired by the film Gremlins, as they look kind of similar to them. The Chimera's appearance was inspired by The Fly. Yawn is most likely inspired by Tremors or, just other giant snake horror movies. And lastly, the Tyrant took heavy inspiration from the movie Future Kill, namely the poster. Kendo's Cut. So this is a humorous mod for the original RE2, made by Res Evil Nemesis 30, where Kendo survives and he follows Leon on his adventure. And I'll link it down below, and it looks pretty hilarious, such as this moment where instead of Leon saving Ada, it's Kendo beating RE2 without walking. So this is an insane challenge, which only a few people have done. So when you aim in the original RE2, it moves you slightly. So that's how you get around in this challenge. Just pure insanity. I'll link a video showcasing the challenge below, but it's just crazy. Ashley and Heather, similar designs. So Ashley from RE4 and Heather Mason from Silent Hill 3 look incredibly similar. Like they could be sisters. But this is kind of ironic since Silent Hill 3 was released just 9 months before RE4. Sherry is older than Jake, so this is something that, kind of just goes over players' heads. But Sherry is 27 in RE6 and Jake is only around 20. That is a rough 20, my dude. The Duke is larger than he appears. So I'm not sure exactly what this means. Maybe there's more of him that we can't see behind. Maybe he just has a large dumpy. But yeah, that's a nice thing for you to picture. Frankenstein's Army plagiarism claims. So this is a 2013 found footage horror movie that involves a Soviet reconnaissance team in the last days of World War II. So, in the film, the team encounters several monsters created by a descendant of Victor Frankenstein while exploring a factory underneath a church's catacombs. But when Village was released, the director of the movie took to Twitter to claim that Capcom had plagiarized one of the creature designs. Which, yeah, they are pretty similar. This spawned a Twitter thread when people realized that some of the other creatures in Heisenberg's factory resembled creatures from the movie. But it doesn't seem like anything happened past that initial claim. Whether or not Capcom did it intentionally or, as a homage to the movie or straight up plagiarism, we will never know. Monkey ears. So Ashley's model has some huge ears when you take off her hair, causing players to give her the nickname Monkey Ears. The cop Leon meets in RE6 is a reference to himself in RE2. So during the city outbreak in RE6, Leon comes across a cop who just started his first day, mirroring our boy Leon's first day. Alternate RPD entrance angle. So if you run into the RPD gate for a little bit, the camera will switch to an area that is only accessible in RE3. Apocalypse memo. So I couldn't find anything about an apocalypse memo, specifically, but I did find something very interesting while researching. So Reddit user Artificial Alchemist posted pictures of a newspaper prop from the movie Resident Evil Apocalypse, and there's actually some pretty interesting things in it. So it appears that instead of Chris joining Jill in the Arklay Mountain mansion incident, it was Leon instead. And the article states that Jill developed PTSD after Leon was killed during that incident, which is kind of funny since Leon appears in the later movies with Jill, which, oopsie. Trevor and Chamberlain. So this is a construction company known for its bizarre building designs. And while not confirmed, it can be assumed that George Trevor, is what the Trevor stands for in it. And the company was responsible for the refurbishment of the Baker's house in Louisiana, which is where RE7 takes place. RE5 Out of Bounds train yard. So there's a glitch in RE5 during the train yard level where you can climb onto a certain ledge and just escape the bounds of the game and explore. Savannah Running. So I believe this is referring to this video where Wesker is just running infinitely in the Savannah map. Guard canceling, so you can skip certain animations like gun reloading in RE7 by just quickly hitting the guard button while doing it. I eat my asshole. So this is just a mishearing when ganados say
Agárrenlo!
which just translates to, there you go, or take that. Pot shots. So this is an ability that Kevin Ryman has in Outbreak. And by taking the time to aim, he will readjust himself and will deal twice as much damage, which makes him formidable to all enemies. And Alyssa also has this, but hers is just a little bit weaker than his. Beginning our player identity. So it's never been revealed who exactly we play as in the RE7 demo. Many speculations have been made, but nothing is concrete confirmed. The protagonist shares Ethan's model and voice, but it obviously isn't him. RE4 Remake mines rocket launcher skip. So during the mine section in RE4 Remake, when you need to fight through a room to collect dynamite in order to blow up a wall to progress, if you have a spare rocket launcher, you can just blow up the wall and immediately progress. Sadler likes American pop culture. So in the OG RE4, Sadler will make a few remarks referencing bits of pop culture, such as him remarking that Leon was a cliche like all the hero type movies. Loomers, I couldn't find anything about this. There's a band called The Loomers, but as far as I know, they don't have any connection to Resident Evil. The origin of the umbrella logo. So until RE8, everyone just assumed that, the logo was just an umbrella. But it turns out that Spencer got the idea from this insignia while, learning under Mother Miranda. So the question is, where does this logo come from? So this is the symbol of the four houses, and in ancient times, four men founded one of Europe's oldest settlements in the region. Their names were supposedly Berengario, Lord Caesar, Guglielmo, and Uncle Nicola. So eventually the settlement died out due to an unknown cause, and a village was later built on top of the settlement. But by the 15th century, their descendants had formed houses Benevento, Dimitrescu, Moreau, and Heisenberg. And these houses prospered until the 20th century when a local woman named Miranda lost her daughter Eva. She tried to end things in a cave, but encountered the Black God and became the Mother Miranda we know in Village. So the direct inspiration for this logo is unknown, but some theories say it resembles Miranda's wings, which makes sense as the logo is, in the center of the four houses, just like Miranda is. And another theory is that it may be an evolution of the Knights Templar, which I can also see as well. Leon's eyeliner. So in the original beta for RE4, Leon seemed to be wearing eyeliner, but this is removed in the full release. But it does make sense for, a person in the early 2000s who wants to be cool. Capcom Hitline. So there was a number that you could find on the game's disc that let you request help if you were stuck at a certain point in the game. But unfortunately, it is no longer a thing as the internet exists now, which is lame. RE2 Remake Montreal Backdrop. So a keen-eyed Reddit user discovered that the backdrop for Raccoon City that they use in the remake is literally just the skyline of Montreal. Moving mannequins. So this is probably the scariest part of the Shadows of Rose DLC. These things are kind of like weeping angels from Doctor Who, where they only move if you don't look at them. And I don't know how, but they made the Benevento house even scarier in this DLC. RE4 Remake Salazar Egg Weakness. So apparently during his boss fight, you can hit him with a gold egg and it will clear him of 70% of his health. Damn, bro's weak to eggs. Leon was drunk before RE2 started. So according to the Biohazard 2 guidebook, Leon had broken up with his girlfriend before moving to Raccoon City. Distraught, he began drinking at a motel and overslept, arriving later than when he was supposed to. But in the R2 remake, it's never really stated why he was late. I think somebody explained that he was on call but never got the call to come in, so he just went in anyways. But in RE Vendetta, we get canon confirmation that Leon does drink when he's distraught, so it could still be that. PeachMilky. So while Ella Freya was the face model for Ashley in the RE4 remake, PeachMilky, or Sophie, was the body scan for Ash and has even cosplayed her a few times. She also has a YouTube channel where she streamed the Resi games, and I'll link it down below for you guys. Knife framerate strats. So this is a really weird feature or mechanic in the game, but the amount of damage that your knife does in the RE2 remake is directly connected to your frame rate. So if you can, up that frame rate and see how much damage your knife does. Plain Tyrant difficulty. So as I mentioned in part 1, the Plain Tyrant fight in Code Veronica is notoriously hard. And this is mainly due to the fact that they don't give you many resources and it's in a tight and close space. PUBG Mobile Collab. So this was to celebrate the release of the RE2 remake. They put outfits resembling Leon, Ada, Claire, Marvin, and Hunk, and Mr. X and the G1 were also added as enemies, along with some weapons from the game. Man, my search history's gotta be wild at this point. The relationship between the Ashford twins and Code Veronica is a little sus. Mainly on like Alfred's part, he's really obsessed with Alexia. It isn't that obvious, but it's definitely like a little bit weird. Also technically in RE2, Birkin implants stuff in Sherry, but I don't want to talk about that because that's disgusting. Sewer gators. So while yes, you do encounter a sewer gator in RE2, this does not refer to that. So Sewer Gators is a documentary series in the Resident Evil universe. So you play as them in RE7 during the VHS flashbacks. The series ran for 2 years, over 16 episodes, and it was just your typical paranormal show where they enter houses and investigate. And unfortunately, they all died in the Baker home, shooting Nemesis's rockets in the OG RE3. So you can shoot his rockets out of the air, but it's very difficult. I tried to do it a few times for this video and never got it. I just died multiple times. RE1 opening, bad filming conditions. So Capcom really didn't know what they were doing while filming the intro for the original RE1. So first off, they just kind of grabbed people to act as the characters. Some were already like, voice actors or actors. But for example, Inez, the girl who played Jill, was just some random high schooler living in Japan. And they filmed on the bank of the Tama River, so it was cold and there were plenty of bugs. And it's now that I want to link you to one of my absolute favorite pieces of like fandom lore. So the YouTuber Residents of Evil, along with countless others, tracked down the original cast over the years, and he made an awesome interview with the actors of Chris, Barry, and Wesker that I'll link down below. And eventually, with everyone's help, all of the actors in the original film were found and contacted, and some of them, have appeared on this channel, and they appeared in interviews, and they even played the game. And for the cherry on top, Chris, Barry, and Wesker's actors made a short film reprising their roles as the characters. And it's really cheesy, but it just feels like the original intro, and I'll link it down below as well. RE8 Ethan post-credit scene theory. So at the end of RE8, there's a scene where Rose is leaving the cemetery, and her car stops at a distance next to a blurry figure. And people were able to find out that the model used for the figure is Ethan's model. So it's a mystery whether or not they just used this model as a stand-in, or if it's actually meant to be Ethan in that scene somehow resurrected and coming back. Stair skating. So if you mash run on stairs while holding anything in the RE1 remake, you get a very funny animation break and you climb faster. Jay's bar is haunted. So in order to get 100% an outbreak, you have to witness bottles falling off shelves and hearing disembodied screams while in the bar. So it's safe to assume that the place is haunted, which opens up a whole new can of worms because it means that the paranormal now exists in the Resident Evil universe. Imagine how haunted Raccoon City would be in RE9 Requiem. RE2 takes place while Jill is unconscious in the clock tower. So yep, Jill is out for a very long time, and I'll break it down. So on September 28th, Jill is infected with the T-virus and passes out. And on the evening of the 29th, Claire and Leon enter Raccoon, escaping on the morning of the 30th. And Jill wakes up in the early morning of October 1st, and by daybreak, Raccoon City is destroyed. RE0 item pickup iframe abuse. So while picking up items in RE0, you are invincible for a few frames, and players can use this to, cheese attacks. RE degeneration. So in order to tie into the CG film, they made a tie-in game. The only catch is it's exclusive to the Nokia N-Gage, but it was eventually ported to iOS and BlackBerry later. And it plays similarly to RE4, and it is unfortunately pretty hard to find nowadays. You mostly have to emulate it. The closet in House Beneviento. So I believe this is referring to the fact that you can hide in the closet as well as under the bed during the baby chase scene in RE8. But most people don't realize that they can and mainly just hide underneath the bed. The merchant is infected theory. So due to his glowing eyes, it can be assumed that the merchant is infected and has the plagas within him. But for some reason, either it doesn't affect him or he is more resistant to it. RE8 angel symbolism. So this is probably referring to Mother Miranda's design, which resembles a biblically accurate angel. Unused difficulty modes. So I couldn't find much regarding this. I assume it means that some difficulties were cut or never made for certain games. But I did discover that for the original RE2, Expert and Nightmare modes were only available on the Dreamcast and Windows ports of the game. Dead aim, inaccurate subtitles. So look up any video of Dead Aim for a quick laugh. Whoever did the subtitles had no idea what the people were saying, and it leads to some very funny scenes. Silent stepping in classic titles. So I'm going to assume that this means that like by walking slowly in the original trilogy, you can bypass enemies like lickers and, stuff like that. Lottie. So Lottie is Natalia's stuffed bear in Revelations 2, and in one of the DLC episodes, Lottie yells at Natalia while she's hallucinating. And unfortunately, Alex Wesker ended up destroying Lottie at one point. What a monster. Like, come on, man. Ethan has suffered the most. So mentally, probably not, but physically, definitely. Ethan has been stabbed, beaten, drowned, dismembered, exploded, burned, and even killed. Poor dude just definitely needed a rest by the end of Village. RE4 Zeebo Edition. So the Zeebo was a console released in 2009, mainly in Brazil and Mexico. And it was a digital-only console that downloaded games from over the internet, which is crazy for 2009. But for some reason, they ported RE4 over to it with a total size of 7 megabytes. That's just insane. It looks like a PS1 version of RE4. Also, there's no cutscenes. It's just like still images, like a visual novel. And luckily for us, YouTuber Stop Skeletons from Gaming, perfect name, has posted a full run-through of the game, which I'll link down below. Definitely go check it out. It's wild. Destroying the Salazar statue in RE4 Remake. So there's a red barrel that you can shoot inside the head that stops the statue from breathing fire. Anime exists in the RE universe. So I couldn't find like a specific reference in one of the games, but it can be assumed that their world is identical to ours. Wesker probably saw some and decided to emulate the goofy villains from it. And, I like to think that Claire enjoys some Attack on Titan. And, Chris hides the fact that his favorite anime is actually Kaguya-sama, Love is War. Late 90s music remixes. So this could mean many things, but many people themselves remixed the music with popular songs from the time, on like their mixtapes and everything. But I did find an official remix of RE1 soundtrack was made by Capcom, the Trinity of Bitches. So this is an absolutely poetic line from Resident Evil: The Final Chapter. I can't believe this didn't win Jorah Mormont his Oscar. And for our final one, we have Leon killed innocent people in Vendetta. So during a chase scene with some Cerberus on a very busy highway, Leon just indiscriminately kills them, which causes him to fall into traffic and blow up several just random innocent civilians. And Leon just does not care about this. He doesn't give it a second thought. Also later in the film, during him and Chris's iconic gun-fu scene, they kill a ton of zombies. But at the end of the movie, they release an airborne cure that cures all of the zombies. So, they just killed all those people with, no thought whatsoever. And I'm sure this will never be addressed in the series ever again. But with that, we have the end of Tier 4 of the Resident Evil Iceberg. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Leave your thoughts about random Resident Evil lore down below. I'd love to talk with you guys about it. But without further ado, thank you guys for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.